Hello everyone, it's Thomas Marr here from formulaspy.com, here with you again to bring you the very latest news, because we're only just over 10 days away from the Formula 1 season finally getting started when the Austrian Grand Prix kicks off next week. So let's have a look at the stories making the headlines at the moment. Ferrari have returned to action and they've become the latest team to carry out a test day using their 2018 car, just like Mercedes and Renault did in the past 2 weeks. They headed up the road to Mugello, a track which is more famed for motorbike racing, and it's a venue that's fighting hard as well to host a Grand Prix later this year, due to the calendar being a little bit all over the place and some unconfirmed flyaway races. Sebastian Vettel and Charles Leclerc were both back formally on duty for Ferrari as they drove the SF71H, the car Vettel fought for the 2018 title with. Sebastian drove during the morning session and he completed a Grand Prix distance. No problem at all for him really, considering it's his first time driving since pre-season testing almost 4 months ago. Charles Leclerc got stuck in during the afternoon, also completing a Grand Prix distance. Speaking after he got out of the car at lunchtime, Vettel said he's delighted to be back. This is his first appearance for Ferrari since the announcement that he will leave and be replaced by Carlos Sainz at the end of this season. "I was glad to get back in the cockpit after a break that was even longer than the usual winter one," said Vettel. "I was also very pleased to see all the guys from the team at last. It was great to once again get those feelings from a car and to do so at such a spectacular track."
Hi everyone, so it's great to be back. Obviously great to have the chance to be back in the car after such a long time, and on a circuit like this, I think it felt pretty incredible. I think Mugello is one of the favorite tracks of all drivers, so should we come here to have a Grand Prix this year, that would be great, and for sure even greater if we were allowed to have fans on the grandstand.
Charles Leclerc, who took over in the afternoon and also completed a Grand Prix distance, said that despite all of his off-season virtual racing, he needed to experience real speed again to acclimatise ahead of next week's Austrian Grand Prix. He said, "How great was that, getting back on track for real? I'd missed it. Even though I've been pretty busy with the virtual racing during this long break, I needed to once again get that physical impression of speed. Being able to drive on such a spectacular track as Mugello for the first time at the wheel of a Formula 1 car, it helped to make this day even more memorable. Now we're looking ahead to the season, and as from next week, things get serious." Formula 1 will roll out a batch of new television graphics for the 2020 season, with the first new one set to appear at the Austrian Grand Prix next week. There's 6 new TV graphics planned, and the first new one will be the Car Performance Scores graphic, which is set up to compare different cars' performances throughout a lap in real time. This data is going to be based on low-speed cornering, high-speed cornering, straight-line performance and car handling, with the data gathered from 300 sensors on each car. Amazon Web Services says there's 1 million data points per second, which will drive these graphics. The others are Ultimate Driver Speed Comparison, which will allow fans to see how their favourite drivers compare to other drivers in history, but is pretty arbitrary because it only dates back to 1983. This graphic is to help determine the fastest driver of all time, and this will debut at the 70th anniversary Grand Prix. That's the second race at Silverstone. Next up, there's the high-speed, low-speed corner performance. This is designed to show fans how well drivers tackle both the fastest and slowest bends on the track. Fastest means 109 miles per hour or above, and slowest means below 78 miles per hour. This is going to debut at the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa. Next up, it's the driver's skills rating, which will break down and score driver skills to help identify the best total driver on the track, based on factors such as qualifying performance, starts, race pace, tyre management, and overtaking and defending styles. This is to provide an overall driver ranking. This is going to debut at an undefined point in the second half of the season. Next up, it's car team development and overall season performance, allowing fans to see teams' pace development throughout the season based on their race-to-race performance. This will debut in the second half of the season. Lastly, there's qualifying and race pace predictions, which will gather data from practice and qualifying laps to predict which team is set to perform best during qualifying and the race. Again, this will debut in the second half of the season. I have to say I'm not hugely gone on the idea of all these extra graphics. I'm not really a fan of informational overload. I think I said this on Twitter earlier, but I prefer to keep things simple, and I think if people aren't concentrating on the actual racing and they're just being swamped by all this information on screen. Sometimes less is more, and I think this is one of those scenarios. And another thing I don't like is it's the graphic that is the ultimate driver speed comparison. I really, really am a huge fan of this one, simply because it almost formalizes a certain viewpoint. So say X driver, we'll say Lewis Hamilton, is shown as being faster than Y driver. In this scenario, we'll use Sebastian Vettel. So if Formula One say Lewis Hamilton is ranking higher than Sebastian Vettel in the ultimate driver speed comparison, then that kind of like makes it a fact. And it's not really a fact, it's an opinion. So you know what I mean? It's not bothered by it. And finally, a quick update on Alex Zanardi. There isn't really a particular update, but he remains in hospital at the Santa Maria Alascote Hospital in Siena. Last night, he spent his 4th night in the intensive care unit of the Polyclinic in Siena in conditions of stability in the parameters cardiorespiratory and metabolic. The neurological picture remains unchanged in its severity. Zanardi remains sedated, intubated and mechanically ventilated. Any reductions in sedation for the assessment of neurological status will be considered starting next week. The prognosis remains confidential. That's it from me for the moment. Don't forget you can like and subscribe to my channel here. You can also get me on Twitter at ThomasMarr on F1. Don't forget to check out the website. It's formulaspy.com. And of course, if you want to support me, you can always buy me a coffee. The link is down below. Until next time, see you later.